Conference today. Nice to see everybody.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Williams with
Ehsan, Kassim.
and welcome to another episode of Seminole Script. As you can tell, this isn't the practice fields outside of Doak Campbell. This is our office at the Tallahassee Democrat. It's because it's raining outside currently, so we had to relocate, but we have the same exact show that you guys have been watching throughout the weeks, that we hope you're watching throughout the weeks, where we're just going to debrief last game this week, the game coming up. But yeah, we'll get into it just in a second, but Ehsan has some announcement to make about what's coming up next for what we're going to do going forward.
Yeah, so we're going to expand a little bit. We'll have the 15 minutes on video for you guys to watch for the football, but the second 15 will also be on Spotify. You can listen to, we're going to talk about soccer, a little bit of basketball, a little baseball, softball, all things Seminole. We're going to make it Seminole Script about everything Florida State sports. But football will dominate the first half, as we usually do, and be part of our Seminole Script Roundtable, which goes up on Thursday mornings.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just we're just trying to give as much information as we can to you guys. We're on the ground all the time, so we'd love to share what we've been seeing from, like you said, soccer, football, just about everywhere. So it's just another pinpoint to access to you guys about what's going on with Florida State athletics. But you guys can see that coming up. But let's talk about last game. Let's talk about Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. That was I think I had a great conversation with somebody, Dustin Lewis of Noel Game Day. I was talking to him. That game never felt like it was in doubt. You just knew Florida State was going to pull it off. But it was interesting because it was a 5-point game at one point. Virginia Tech cut the lead down to 5. Johnny Wilson goes down the next play, and then Trey Benson picks out the run. If that Trey Benson run does not happen, that was game-changing. That was game-defining. Because that run doesn't happen, let's say get punted again. Virginia Tech has the ball with a chance to take the lead. I still don't know if you feel, because Virginia Tech's offense never found the rhythm. They never looked good. The defense was always on its heels. It felt like you never felt like Virginia Tech was going to win that game, but they had a chance. Like, that's a weird thing. Like,
They did.
Florida State did not play a complete game. Did not play their best game. And it was my column this week is what at this point, if we're still asking what their best game is, if they're coming to the press conference 6 weeks in, 5 games in. What is their best game? Do they have an A game?
Essentially, I mean, as you mentioned it before, Virginia Tech's offense really didn't find a rhythm and stuff like that. But you have to mention, too, that the cliche thing, they dominated that window of the game that all the coaches from high school to, powder puff little kids all the way up to college, they dominated that window that all the coaches say you need to, where it's at the end of the second quarter going to the third quarter. They really looked well in the second quarter, and that was after debatably FSU came off of their best first quarter I've seen.
Best quarter period.
At best quarter period, honestly, the entire season, they were unbelievable, and I thought, wow, they have a chance to play that complete game. And then you saw the response that happened in the second quarter, and things kind of went downhill, and then you saw what happened after halftime, where Virginia Tech's running back returned that 99-yard kickoff return to the house, and suddenly, as you mentioned, it became a whole different game. That Virginia Tech suddenly, if they were able to get things going, like you said, if some specific plays didn't happen, especially if Trey Benson didn't go off the way he did, this could be a very different conversation that we could be having right now.
But the positive thing you want to take from that is this happened at Boston College. They did not respond. They got lucky to escape to that win. They responded this game. That's a positive they could take, is they learned from the Boston College game. And they talked about it in the post game as well. That was something they learned from. They did not want it to snowball. They did not let it defeat themselves on the sideline. Like, oh, one play happened, one thing happened. They were talking to them. We're not going to let Boston College happen again. We're not going to let Boston College happen again. So that was a good lesson for the team to learn from, and they responded well and just dominated from that. The defense on a low point in the second half. Every point came from a special teams play. The offense scored a bunch of points after. Was it 22-17 at that point? Mm-hmm. They rattled off this final 17 points in the game. So they took care of it from that point on. They did not let it snowball like they did at Boston College. So you can say, yes, there's a negative is what is their A game? You keep talking about it, but until you put it on paper, does it exist?
Mm-hmm. And you talk about we did see they kind of answered one of the big questions there about the running game getting going. We saw again. I think Atkins mentioned that he's never worried about Trey Benson ever getting going. I don't think a lot of people are, just because of how dominant he is on the ground. And he got going in that game as well. He broke his career high, didn't he?
He broke his career high with a 62-yard rush. He broke his career high with the 85-yard rush, and then he broke his career high with 200 yards. Joined some elite company with Dalvin Cook, who he mentioned at postgame, and you can talk about a little bit.
Yeah, we worked on the trending story a bit. I worked on a trending story a bit about Trey Benson has mentioned over and over again about how the rushing game has not been getting going and stuff like that. And right before that game, he got a text from Dalvin Cook saying, hey, he's like, I'm really proud of you. The rushing game's going to hit. And just, hyping him up the way that, someone like that should be. And, especially when you're being texted Dalvin Cook like that too, and you're a running back at Florida State, that's a huge deal. And sure enough, Benson went out there and dominated. And
most importantly, he made Mama happy.
He made his mom happy. It was his mom's birthday. So, but it was a big night for him as well. You saw LT get going as well, and then you saw Rodney Hill getting some rushes too. It was a wider performance from the running back as well. In my opinion, I think it still needs to expand a little bit more. I mean, Trey Benson's going to eat a lot of yards no matter what, but I think you need to see a little bit of a boost kind of from everybody else. I mean, things were clicking and stuff like that, but at the same time too, when they're saying they don't feel like they've played their complete game yet, or a complete game yet, or I don't know,
their A game, their best game.
A game, yeah, that's the best way to put it. And I don't know how possible a perfect game is, because no matter what, people are going to find something to nitpick on. But we're all the way here. We are now. They're still undefeated, which is the positive and stuff, and they're still winning stuff like that. But if they haven't played that perfect game yet, what does that say? And they're kind of lucky that they're having the stretch coming up. Not to downplay Syracuse or Duke and stuff like that, but when as bad as Miami's loss was last week, them coming in, they're still a ranked squad, and then you have Florida at the end of the season too. What does that say about pacing?
So I do think the Duke game could be a little different next year. Next week. That's getting ahead of ourselves, but it depends on the health of Riley Leonard, because that defense is going to challenge Florida State. That's a talented defense. They played well against Clemson. They played really well against Notre Dame, and so I don't think we should overlook that Duke game yet. I think it's been a good game, but we're getting way ahead of ourselves with those couple of things. So we can let's start looking at this week's game.
Yeah, Syracuse, they've mentioned on and on again that they bring a really diverse, unique defense to the field as well, and that's what they've been preparing for a lot of too. They've mentioned the veteranship of Syracuse's quarterback, Garrett Schrader, and they've just mentioned that it's an older team too, and Florida State's also an older team as well to the skill level. From what I've seen, what we've seen throughout the season is a little higher at Florida State than it is at Syracuse, but you still have a team at Syracuse that has been on the field for a long time and been together for a long time, and they're preparing for that as well, and they aren't taking this lightly. They don't take a lot of games. They don't take every game lightly. They prepare the same way just for each opponent, but they're preparing for a veteran Syracuse team to come in. They're preparing for them to give them a game. They were competitive against Clemson as well. Was that last week?
2 weeks ago. Yeah. Last week against UNC, I think that was
UNC
47.
Yeah.
Well, they were not competitive last week. They were competitive against Clemson 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Last week against UNC, it was 40-1 to 7 or 40-7, so it was not competitive. But I don't think Florida State fans should read into that one. I think they're going to be the closer team that came into. Florida State's a 17-point favorite, and I have not made my prediction yet. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go. We'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. But I do think it could be interesting. I do think that Syracuse will make. I don't think it's going to be an easy win like last week. I don't think it's going to be easy. I think Florida State wins. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how close of a game it is. I'm not sure how much Florida State's up. I'm not saying backups in this game playing too much. I think it's going to be a competitive game. Garrett Schrader, we talked to Akeem Dent today after practice, and he talked about last year. Garrett Schrader is someone that liked to use his legs more in passing. He thinks that he's been a better passer this year. But he also cautioned, he said, he's focused on one thing from a coaching perspective, he's looking at, he's ready to face him running more this week because Florida State struggled with that. I think Florida State's cognizant of that. They struggled a little bit with running quarterbacks, so I think they're cognizant of that. They're prepared for everything with Garrett Schrader. He's a veteran. He's played a lot against Florida State. And he's a talented quarterback. He is a good runner, decent thrower. I think last year's game against Florida State, he was a little hurt, had that little shoulder injury, so it's hard to say, read into what happened last year. It's hard to read into what happened last week. I think you expect closer to the Clemson game where they're going to compete. I just don't think they have enough firepower, like you mentioned, to compete with Florida State, but they will compete.
And it's a good thing for Florida State too is that they are having a lot of guys come back from injuries as well. We mentioned we saw some action from Kentron Poiter as well. Last game, Ja'Kai Douglas dressed as well too, and we're seeing a lot of guys come back. Last game against Virginia Tech, which is another plus as well.
Yeah, I think earlier this week, Norvell said we're going to see where Bless Harris is this week. He gave an update on Johnny Wilson. He said we'll see where he is. I'd probably say those guys are questionable.
I agree.
Let's say Ja'Kai Douglas came out of the game good. Robert Scott, Norvell said he came out better than he thought, and he said moving forward, it's good for him. So there's some. The team's getting healthier. It's obviously part of the season where people are going to get dinged up and hurt anyways, like you mentioned, Johnny Wilson. So it's football. There's been injuries. You have to deal with them.
Yeah.
Just how you come out, how you respond. So it should be. I think it looks like they'll be as healthy as you can be this part of the year.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a part of the year where there are guys banged up, and even then, we mentioned that after the Boston College game, Jordan Travis was a little bruised on his left shoulder, but it seems like he's fine now. Jakeem Bell was a little banged up too, but he seems to be going at a good pace too. I mean, as you mentioned, it's October, it's mid-October. They've played a lot of football. So,
one thing we should mention, like we saw today, is how seriously they're taking the Syracuse game. Like, they respect Syracuse. Is the chippiness in practice, I think, is a sign of respect that we saw today. Kalen DeLoach got into a little bit. Gilbert Edmond was taunting the offensive line during drills. Like, they were having, it was some fun back and forth. There was also like a little chippiness of
They were. You could tell they were having some fun at some points, as you mentioned. It was Edmond that was truly having a lot of fun.
Dancing
around and taunting some of the guys after the drills. DeLoach, it looked like it got a little too competitive at some points, but it's good to have that there.
You want that fire because it shows that you respect the opponent. It shows that they're taking this week seriously. They're not taking a week off because we just beat Virginia Tech by 22. We get another home game against Syracuse for 7. They're not looking at that. They're not looking at a number 4 team. They are hungry. I think that's what you want to see from this team at this point.
They want to win every week, and I don't think they're taking breaks on someone. I think they've seen they can't do that after what happened against Boston College, and we saw Virginia Tech sneak up a little bit too, and I think they realizing that they're a team that they can't take breaks as well, and they're not taking breaks either.
The margin of error for the team is very small.
Oh no, it is, and I don't know what happens if they end up getting a loss down the road here versus even when they're done being at home. We're looking far forward, but if a Wake Forest comes up or a Pitt, I know as bad as Pitt is, but it is a road game.
And I think the argument happens then is I think it'd be ironic, it'd be funny is Florida State's got to go from if they're a one-loss ACC champion trying to get in the playoffs, then they go from from saying that the ACC's not good enough for us to saying no, we love the ACC, it's fantastic. We play, but that's a conversation for another day.
It's an interesting situation right now. The focus is Syracuse right now. That will be at noon. On ABC.
ABC, yes.
ABC, yes.
Yes, so we also learned that we'll get out there. We don't know exactly when it is, but 7:30 or 8 o'clock ACC network for Duke the following week. So we get another night game, primetime game, which I think that's the right decision. As much as I don't want to have a night game.
Yeah, they're currently the two outside of UNC
and Louisville.
Louisville. I can't forget about them. They are the two big teams in the ACC right now, or at least that's the big ACC matchup right now. I know there's still a point to sell ACC games from ESPN and ABC. So
it's gonna be a fun game. That's gonna be a fun. I genuinely believe that's gonna be a good. Duke's gonna give Florida State. But that's once again. Let's looking ahead. Looking at this week. You're gonna have your opponent previewed for later this week. We're gonna have obviously this roundtable will have predictions in there. But there's a lot going on. This will be week 6. Jordan Travis going for the Heisman. Will Johnny Wilson play or not? There's a lot of storylines. Keon Coleman, obviously emerging as a go-to weapon. Last game, going back to Virginia Tech. Norvell mentioned his incredible blocks. He sprung the run for Trey Benson outside, which opened up the hole. He got the 85-yard run that set a new career record. So there's a lot of storylines for this game. Syracuse, obviously, I think an interesting story we talked about Lawrence Tortelli yesterday is, by the time this comes out Tuesday, after Tuesday's practice, he talked about how, Florida State was 0-4 in 2021, the last time Syracuse came to town, and they beat them 33-30.
Yeah. Jordan
Travis had 100-something yards passing, 113 yards rushing, scored 2 touchdowns, and at that point, Mike Norvell was 4-10 in his FSU career, I believe if my numbers are right. Since then, they've gone on the streak where they finished that season 5-3. They finished 5-7 that year. Then they went 10-3 last year. 6-0 this year, 5-0 this year.
5-0.
5-0. and they won 11 straight games dating back to last year. So it was a turning point.
It was absolutely. I think Norvell talked about that today as well, and just how important that game was.
It was just getting that monkey off the back, getting that first win. Because
Yeah.
then there's a point where you you don't know how to win per se. Like, it's a cliche, but you don't know how to close games out. But that was a chance to close the game out, get a win, and see, we can do this. We can win.
Right. It will be interesting to see how things go on Saturday. I think it will be pretty competitive. It'll be a good game either way, in my opinion. But we'll wrap the Seminole script portion of the video up here. Where can they find us? Where can you find all our content?
Nullsports.com, Tallahassee.com. Null Sports, we have just for football, we have a football subsection where you can find everything for football. We'll have a lot of stories for, this week, Syracuse week. We do a great job of pat ourselves on the back of, producing content for you guys, different content. It's not the same content you're going to get everywhere else. It's,
No, it's unique. We make sure that what we're doing is very unique, very in-depth, and offering you guys something different. But yeah, so if you guys are interested in hearing more about FSU athletics and soccer and just how good #1 team in the country has been, follow. It's going to be on Spotify, right?
Well, Spotify, and if you also in the article, we'll have a link for their Spotify. You could just go straight there.
Yeah. But you can find that there. But we are going to cut Seminole script right here.